Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Today, we're going to learn about public goods and common resources. So, so we are going to talk about what each of these goods are and why we study them and what are some of the reasons of classifying them accordingly. So, before we talk about public goods and common resources, we need to mention two types of ways. One is called excludability. Excludability here means, can I prevent someone from using the good that I own? So basically, excludability comes from exclusivity. If you think about it, is it exclusively mine, or does other people have some rights over it or not? So from here, we have two goods. We can call it non-excludable. These goods are things that we cannot exclude others from using. So for example, public Wi-Fi. So if there is public Wi-Fi, if anyone has a smartphone or a laptop, they can easily access the public Wi-Fi. I cannot prevent people from using that product. The other thing is, and then there are other examples too. Let's say, some are like air. I cannot prevent someone from breathing the air that's around me. The other one is excludable. This is when we can exclude people from using the product. So this is basically, examples are like maybe the burger that I bought, my house or my apartment where I live. I can exclude people from using this place. I can exclude people from coming into this place, or I can exclude people from eating my food. So we have these two types of goods. So basically, some goods are non-excludable. We cannot exclude people from using them. Other goods are excludable, which means we can prevent them from using it. The next classification is called rivalry, which is basically, after I am done using the product, can others use it? So is there enough? Basically, what that means is there enough left over? So from here, for rivalry, we have, let's say, goods that are rival, which is, let's say, like, if I am done using it, it's gone. Others cannot use it. So things like food, my maybe my pen or pencil, and other products. So once I'm done using it, there isn't any available for the other person to use. Non-rival basically means, if I am done using, there is enough left over for the next person. So example is like going to a park. So a park. After I'm done, let's say I sat in a location in a park for the afternoon. Once I'm done, once I leave the park, that space is available for someone else. So based on these things, we will now classify our products. So I'll draw a table here. Actually, I don't want it that way. Let me just do it here. So let's say if good is excludable or non-excludable, good is rival, and non-rival. So if a good is both excludable and rival, that is, I can exclude people from using it, and after I'm done using it, there isn't enough left over for the next person, these type of goods we call private goods. So examples like food. Now, another type of good is, let's say, if I can exclude people from entering or using it, but once they're inside, once I used it, let's say, they're no longer, it doesn't diminish my other people's use, or there is enough left over for my other. This kind of goods we call as club goods. So examples are, let's say, social club, as the name suggests, maybe like Wi-Fi with password, maybe your Netflix account. So these are considered club goods because I can exclude people from using my Wi-Fi, and they can only use it if I give them the password, or I can exclude people from using my Netflix account. I can only give them they can only use it if I give them my password. But once they're in, it really doesn't, unless, like, you add in 50 or 70 extra people. If you add one more person, if you were just using your Wi-Fi and now another person's using it, it really does not diminish your usage or your experience of using that. If something is non-excludable, that is, you can't exclude people, but they are rival, that is, once you're done using it, there's less left over, or the amount that's left over is diminished, those kind of goods we call as common resource. This is basically, example is like fish in the sea, wildlife. And then finally, if something is non-excludable and non-rival, we call those public goods. And that's like, example is like air we breathe, water, etc. Now, the thing about excludable goods is that we can assign, for excludable goods, we can assign what we call property rights. So what that means is property rights, which means that I can prevent people from using or accessing the good I own. So if I own my house, then I can prevent other person from using or coming into my house. If I own a food or a laptop or a product, even it may not be rival, it may be non-rival, but if I own it, I can prevent someone from coming in and using. However, for non-excludable goods, I cannot assign property right in the proper sense. So like later we will see some examples where we can, and we'll see what happens then. So what happens is that since let's say fish in the lake, if I cannot exclude anyone from fishing, then it can lead to overfishing. Same thing if we think about like air that we have. If I cannot exclude people from misusing the air, then it will get overpolluted, because people will think I can pollute there as much as possible, so I can set up all those factories and industries that will just spew out all the pollution and it should be fine. So that's the problem with common resources and public goods. So common resources and public goods are non-excludable according to the definition. So that means that we cannot exclude people from using them, and so what happens is they get overused. The other problem with common resources is it also gets diminished by usage. So if you think about like fish at the sea or in a lake, if I overfish, there's less left over for others. So if you think about wildlife, if I overhunt them, then overconsumption can lead to extinction. So common resources have this really problematic thing, and there is actually a very famous thing about common resources. It's called the tragedy of the commons. So what that says is basically in England or in rural parts of England, there was something called the commons, which was a land anyone could use for their sheep to graze. Since it was available for anyone, so people tended to overuse that land. And so as a result of that, people tended to overuse that land. And so that land wasn't allowed to recover. So what happened is overuse of the land led to basically all the grass being gone, and the sheep could not graze there anymore. So the tragedy of the commons is if it's left to themselves, then people will tend to overuse natural resources or common resources, and so that's problematic. Same thing with public goods. If we don't control or we don't restrict people from polluting air or water, people will tend to overpollute air or water, and then there isn't going to be enough for the rest of us. So how does government go about helping with common goods? One thing is that for common resources, they may issue permits, fishing permits or deer hunting permits. So the government understands that, okay, yes, we may fish, but let's say we can only fish, 2 tons of fish from this sea or from this water body in order to maintain a healthy number of fish in this water. So they will issue exactly that much permits in order to ensure that people don't overuse them. With public goods, government may ask they may sell rights to pollute, which means that, okay, we understand that, some pollution is inevitable because we use certain products, we use gasoline to run our cars, so they will make sure that we only pollute up to a certain point, and beyond that, we either restrict the amount of pollution or we tax the pollution. So that's one way governments can control the use of public goods. Now, all this thing, now, one thing that I also did not write about public goods is that public goods gets especially harder to control because people will say that, well, it does not really diminish, so it is non-rival. So why do we need to restrict its use? So common resource people are like, okay, I understand common resource because like fishing permits and deer hunting permits helps to keep the population of those wildlife in at bay, or not at bay, at like at a proper level. But what about public goods? Why can't I just keep on polluting the air? So that's when people are like, well, we know store things about like, if we keep on polluting the air, not just if we keep on breathing those pollutants, it does cause a lot of issues with our health, with our well-being. If I drink polluted water, it can cause a lot of diseases inside of me. So we should not, we should restrict the amount of pollutants we release into those public goods. The other problem is it is also hard to price public goods. Like, how much would you sell air for? Different people have different values for air. So that is the other issue. Some people may value clean air a lot. Some people may not value clean air as much. If I set a price that, okay, in order to use clean air, you have to pay this much. Now, people may lie and they all say, we really don't value clean air, because they know that once the air has been cleaned, you cannot prevent people from using it because it is a non-rival good. So as a result of that, people may free ride. So which that means is that, let's say I don't want, like, one example of free riding, and say, let's say I really want a park in my neighborhood. So I might say that I really want a park, and there's a government thing that's saying that, okay, let us all pay for the park, but I might not want to pay for it. I might lie and say that I don't value the park, so then I don't to pay for its setup. But once it's up, no one can prevent me from using the park because it is non-rival and non-excludable. If it's a public park, you cannot prevent someone from going there. And because it's non-rival, you can say that, hey, look, I'll just use it a little bit. The other person came and did not really mess it up, and I'm not going to mess it up. There's going to be enough left over for the next person. So it's then hard to price it because everyone will lie and will not actually provide it. So then what ends up happening is that public goods tend to be not provided or underprovided if left to the market. That is, if we let the market forces, entrepreneurs, try to provide public goods, let's say somebody will open a park, or a company will clean the air, those things will not be provided properly because we cannot price those goods properly, and people will not voluntarily pay for those goods. So under those circumstances, the government has to step in and tax us to ensure that we pay for the upkeep of those public goods, upkeep and also production. So that's when the government comes in. So one of the people, like even with somebody who is completely anti-government, will also have to say that in certain cases we do need the government. The government is needed to provide public goods because they can kind of force us to pay taxes, which then provides public goods like clean air, clean water, national defense, fire services, etc. So all these are examples of public goods. Government is also needed to provide common resources because government can restrict people from overhunting. So by issuing permits, government, or by banning hunting, like of the bald eagle, government can restrict the overuse of common resources. So these then ensure that we have enough left over for the next generation. Hopefully this was helpful about learning public goods and common resources, how we classify them, and why We need governments for, maintaining them. If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comment box below. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you at a later video.